Hey guys, welcome to Writing for Children's Unit. Today's activity is really easy. I want you to talk about your favorite book that is a children's book, whether it be a chapter book like The Twits by Roald Dahl, or Sideways Stories from Wayside School, or something like Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. There's a lot of beautiful children's literature out there, and it might seem easy to write, but it's actually not. It reminds me of this quote that I always liked about Nirvana. And I don't care if you like them or not, but the idea of Nirvana, some of their songs are pretty simple, and some is children's literature. And so keep that in mind. So the saying was that anyone can play a Nirvana song, but not anyone can write one. Same goes with children's literature. This week, we're going to talk about picture books, like Mother Bruce, which I love. This is a great one. If you haven't read it, I'll read it to you. And we'll also talk about chapter books, and you'll be able to try your hand at either one of these. You don't have to do both. You're going to look at some activities, some techniques over Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, you'll start trying to either make a spread, which we'll talk about more, but you can imagine it's literally 2 pages, or a short little chapter, which is like 200, 300 words in little kids' chapter book. But anyway, and you'll have the following week to do like 2 more chapters, and then we'll share. So you'll have 3 writing days, like official writing days, 2 days where we'll look at technique, and today, our intro, and then at the end of that unit, we'll have the share. So I'm excited for this. I hope you are too. In a minute, I'm going to read you Where the Wild Things Are. But before I even do that, today I'm asking you, when you go into the discussion board, to talk about the book that you liked as a child. And you can find this on YouTube if you can't own the book anymore. Reread it, think about it. What about it made it such a classic for you and your family? What made you gravitate towards this out of all the children's tales? Do you still like it? Why? Like, what is it? I still like Where the Wild Things Are. And in my blooper reel, where I try to read this to you and it's awful and I just laugh the whole time, I have a really good explanation at the end, but I'll try to make it short here. It's this awesome, imperfect child. And I think, and you'll see in the notes, that a lot of children's stories take on real childhood experiences. And in this one, we have a kid that's bad. He's like a bad kid and gets in trouble. He's nuts. He's being all hyperactive, and he's all over the place. And he imagines he's like the worst kid of all. Like, if he were on an island with wild things, he'd be king. And then he follows in the footsteps of his own mom, and it's like, sometimes you need to calm down. So this imperfect narrator learns kind of a lesson about what's really important, and maybe about how to calm down, maybe how to use your imagination. And so what Maurice Sendak does is this beautiful thing of showing us an imperfect narrator, an imperfect child, getting punished, which is totally realistic. And what do you do when you're punished? Like, what do you when you're sent to your room? Like, what do you imagine? And how do you process the idea that you just got in trouble for being wild? What does that actually look like to a child? And so he plays around with it in this book. Like, what does a child think wild? Like, what does it mean to be wild? Is it necessarily a bad thing? Anyway, so I think for this, the story, the main character, is the major element that makes this such a successful book. And it's sick art. It is ridiculously cool looking. He draws monsters. I didn't even show you one. He draws monsters. Wow. And they're like terrifying. And Roald Dahl talks about this too. It's like one of my other favorites and heroes for like children's literature. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Twits, Matilda. Like, a good bad guy, something a little scary for kids is good, because life can be a little scary, and sometimes they like to see someone succeed. And so over the course of the next few days, we're going to talk more about this. But for today, you can listen to me terribly read this book, and then talk about why I think it's important to like have a good children's literature book, or what you think makes a good children's literature. What is the one element that you think from your childhood favorite that stands out to you as like a writing element, a craft element, like the illustrations, the design. All right, I'll shut up and I'll get to reading this. You're welcome in advance. So, okay. Where the Wild Things Are. Story and pictures by Maurice Sendak. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, I'll eat you up. So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew. That very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became a wood all around. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max. And grew until his ceiling hung with vines. And he sailed off through night and day. Walls became the world all around. And in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the wild things are. And an ocean tumbled by. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. Till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And when he came to the place where they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all, their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and made him king of all the wild things. And now, cried Max, let the wild rumpus begin. And tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes. And they danced and they howled by the light of the moon. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. Tree limb like monkeys and baboons. And made him king of all. And they had a great big parade with Max. And now, cried Max, let the wild rumpus begin. Now stop, Max said. And they danced and howled by the light of the moon without their supper. And Max, the king of all the wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. And they had a great big parade with far away across the world. He smelled good things to eat, so he gave up being king of all the wild things. Max said, and sent the wild things. The wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up." Max, king of all the wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him. The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. And sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day. We love you so. And Max said, into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. Teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. And sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day. And into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot.